Hello, welcome to stage one, and I hope you are having a terrific session here at Diana Initiative. So,
You are
have
having
you Googled yourself lately? Well, our next speaker is Meghan Jacquot, and she is a curious, lifelong learner who happens to love to share what she finds. And she will be speaking about some of those things you can find on OSINT and how we can lessen our footprint and take some of that back. There will be a question and answer session following this. And I would just like to give a quick thank you and shout out to all of our very generous sponsors. Okay, Meghan, over to you.
Okay, hi and welcome everyone. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm going to start with taking us on a little bit of a journey. Okay, so we're not here to listen to music, but you can imagine that song kind of playing through and saying something like just a small town girl living in a lonely world. But we're going to shift it from it being in that small town to really the whole wide world, the whole wide web, and using OSINT tools to find yourself. So I'm Meghan Jacquot, also known as Cyber TARDIS. I work at Cyber Future Foundation, doing risk assessment, cybersecurity engineering. You can also find me at Carpe Diem Tech. So I'll be going through a couple different things here for my talk. So here we have a brief outline of everything we'll be discussing. So I'll give a who am I, a little bit more in depth. I'll talk about what is OSINT, like what is this open source information technology gathering that we do? What are some of the tools? I will demo some of those. My lovely speaker wrangler will actually be sharing the slides with you all, as well as a Google Doc that I created with resources. The resources you can also find embedded in the slides, but I created a separate link as well, so you'll kind of get both of those. We will go over some data removal requests. We won't actually do any of those, but I do have just some things for how to do that. And then we'll look at some resources for how to practice OSINT if this is really fascinating for you. And I'm happy to do some Q&A at the end. So if you have any things that you want to drop in chat, or you're welcome to ping me in Slack. And then this is just a disclaimer here. Really think about OSINT for good. It should be used for good. It should be used for helping others. And of course, like any tool, it can be used in a negative way. So everything that we go over today, everything that I'm working with you today, everything that I'm teaching you today is meant to be used as a tool for positive use. And I do not intend to have you use it in a nefarious or negative manner. So just kind of keep that in mind, that of course with anything, it could be used for cyberbullying in a negative way. It could be used for, different cyber attacks, but that is not the intent of any of this. And I hope that you go out there and you use it for OSINT for good, and that you're able to maybe even help some with one of the great organizations that does a lot of this, which is Trace Labs, and I'll speak about them at the end as well. Okay. So who am I? Well, I'm a person, just like any of you. I'm very curious. I love to learn. And I've always kind of had this path just inherently really just to who I am, to the point that my parents actually gave me this nickname, Curious George, where I liked to take things apart and figure out how they worked. And then, sometimes build them back, but not always. And really just figure out like, oh, okay, this is exactly how this works. I've always loved to tinker. So I'm, at home, as many of you are. So around me, I have like my soldering kits. I've got little devices. I like to build things, both with physical, but then from a software perspective as well. I like to help others. So I really do enjoy thinking about like where I am in my own journey and where others are and how I can help and give back. That's very important to me. And I also believe that wherever you are in your learning journey, you can also continue learning as well. So kind of this mentor-mentee relationship and always being a continual learner. I'm very passionate about being proactive in information security. So looking at what the risks are, trying to mitigate them, trying to lessen that attack surface. And then I find the cloud absolutely fascinating. Many things are moving to the cloud. And so how can we try to make sure that that is as secure as possible? And then I work with Cyber Future Foundation, and I do risk assessment and operations with them. And then my name is also Cyber TARDIS. I love Doctor Who. I'm a Doctor Whovian, so I've got like a little TARDIS here, something I've been super fascinated with for a while. I've seen every episode that you can see. You can't actually see every single episode because some were lost, but I've even seen the ones that are in audio. So that's a little bit about me. And I love adventures, enjoy space, done paleontological digs, flown airplanes. And, I kind of enjoy running, doing different adventures. So if you are an adventurer, if you are a learner, if you're someone who loves all these things, definitely seek me out. And I'd love to also connect with you. So open source intelligence. Like I said, this is a way that we can help others. It's a way that we can be curious. And, we kind of have a fun acronym for this. Let me Google that for you. So where does it come from? Like, what is its history? So open source intelligence comes out of the world wars. And it was something that a lot of work was being done, a lot of data and information was being gathered in regards to, we have these massive apparatuses being formed and all these different divisions. And what do we do with all the information that's being gathered? How do we make it actionable? What types of things do we want to do? Maybe we're going to have a mission where we, completely send out a disguised corpse to the banks of Italy and make it look like one thing is happening because we want to make it look like this is happening from an intelligence standpoint. And then we need to figure out, was that successful? So all sorts of different operations happen that involved a tremendous amount of intelligence gathering. Even from like let's look at different camouflage techniques and see if they work from a tactical standpoint. Let's work with public civilians and see what works. And so when you think about some of the big things that are happening, there is information gathered, there is data that has been found and sources and people who are cultivated for that. And then that was all kind of like the history of it, right? So that's historical. A lot of this then led to organizations being formed out of the world wars. So specific to the US, we have the OSS being formed. So this is the Office of Strategic Services that later becomes the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. So that gets formed. That particular, for me, was interesting from a personal perspective, since my grandfather was career military and also career intelligence, and so he was involved in parts of the OSS being formed. So from a personal story perspective, I find OSINT very fascinating. Then we have nowadays, right? So we have this historical information gathering, we have archivists, we have lots of data. We had librarians and archivists working in the world wars. How does this relate to today? Well, some of the techniques that we have for today are that we have advanced Googling. We have that you can become a search master. We have different tools that have been built. We have image reverse lookups. So we're going to work through some of these different tools. And like I said, the theme for this conference is Spark a Journey. We are going to go on a journey together about data and look at what we can uncover with some of these tools and what we can do with that. So that's what we'll be doing next. So when we think about data and all the data that's out there, there's so much data information out there. And so this is just a few years old, so you can imagine that everything that's listed here from a numbers perspective is even more. So all of the different platforms out there are sending out petabytes of data, all these packages going back and forth and back and forth. And different ways that could be analyzed. And so we're going to look at some different parts of that. But we want to also make sure that we're on the same page with definitions. So first, we start with, there's just a tremendous amount of data out there. That's just, data, crazy, tremendous amount of data. So data is the information. Then we have certain things that we need to make sure that we're paying attention to with that data. So there are specific laws that we need to be compliant with. So one example for that would be the GDPR, so the General Data Protection Regulation. Now this is specific to the EU, but because of the nature of globalization and the way that those data protections work, we actually have implications for GDPR for all sorts of parts of the world. And this is a data privacy law, governs the privacy of the data. We additionally have people like ourselves that work on making sure that that data is secure, right? So security then protects the privacy of the data, protects the CIA of that data. So you want to make sure it maintains its confidentiality, it stays the way it should be, so it has its great, excellent integrity, and it remains for whatever uptime rules that you've set. It is available in the way it should be available. So all those things are really important from a security standpoint. So, we've just spoken about, there's all sorts of huge amounts of data out there. We've defined, and now we're on the same page with all of these different parts of data. Now what we're going to do, we're going to continue on this journey, and we're going to look at what we can do with looking at some of this data. So this is where this OSINT part comes in. And you can look at data about yourself, about others, about organizations. I know someone gave a talk yesterday about doing OSINT for jobs. So that can be a really useful thing to do when you are figuring out, like, oh, I'm on a job search and I need to learn more information about the organization. So there's all sorts of ways that this can be done. But of course, remember my disclaimer at the beginning. So what are going to be some of the tools that we're going to look at? We're going to look at using the OSINT framework. This is a just repository of tools. I'm going to take us through some specific ones. I know that these ones work. If you were to go through every single node on this, you would then realize some of them are broken. Some of them take you to the Internet Wayback Machine. So I'm not going to take you to any of the ones that are broken. That would not be a good use of our time together. We're going to take a look at Google dorking. This is a technique that can be used with using specific search terms. We're going to look at Shodan, and we're going to look at the Harvester in Kali Linux and do a little bit of specific searching with that. So that's our plan, and that's going to be the bulk of what we're going to be doing today. Now, like I said, you should have shared with you both the slides and the resources. And so that should give you access to a copy of these slides with live links and a copy of the resources. And so that should be really helpful for you for following along. And you're welcome to just listen, but if you want to be doing this at the same time, you're welcome to as well. So let's jump in and take a look. Okay, so this is the OSINT framework. And I think it is incredibly helpful. It, like I said, is a repository of all these different things. And I'm not going to search myself. I'm not going to search any of you. I'm going to search a generally well-liked famous person. So I'm going to search Tom Hanks. So that's who I chose for this exercise that we're going to be doing. And we're going to use this here. And you can see all of these different nodes here are filled in circles. What that means within the OSINT framework is it means that when we click on one of these, more things will populate. So what we're going to see is I'm going to click on social network. So you can see that right here, right? So when you click on the word, it opens up. So I'm going to do that. Are you ready? This is the first step of the journey into the tools. Okay, so what we see now is we see a number of things populated, right? So note that this is now an empty circle because all of its nodes have been sent out. And then each of these circles is full, but not this one, right? So that means that each of these has sub nodes that you can keep going to. So I'm going to have us go to Twitter. And same thing. This one's been emptied, and we can see each of these. Then I'm going to have us go to the location mapping. And now we're at the point where this is empty and all of these are empty, which means each of these is an actual tool that we can go to. So we're going to click on the 1 million tweet map. And we can see a graphical user interface map that is searchable. So we're going to search Tom Hanks. And we're not going to add any filters right away. We're just going to search his first and last name, regular search, and we can zoom in. We can do geolocations. So, you know, TDI is usually on the West Coast in Vegas. We can see if anything's happening in Nevada. And we can actually look at these tweets. And we can see that because I didn't do this with quotes, we are getting less specific maybe than what I wanted, right? So it's going to repopulate my search with Tom and Hanks together. And then I can add in some of these. See day and night. And you can see that that Vegas one went away because it wasn't Tom Hanks. But we've got one in the middle of the country. And we're speaking about a movie, okay? So we have a middle of the country tweet and we have a specific movie reference. So we actually have some geolocation information. And right now we don't have any filters or any other things other than the fact that I've added on making sure that we're doing an inclusive search, right? That we're doing the two words together. Okay. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head that we just did a geolocation tweet search. Okay. Now we're going to do another one. And we're going to do one that is the Twitter search. So you see that node here. And then we're going to do Toogle. So Google, Toogle, Twitter, Google. And then same thing. We'll search Tom Hanks. And we can get to Tom Hanks' Twitter page in English or the copied one. We're going to go to his English one. So we can see his Twitter page. And we can see that he's not as often of a on the Twitter. But we can see that he was posting some lovely things for the class of 2020, etc. Okay. We can see some geolocation stuff here too, right, with Los Angeles. So just kind of keep that in mind. So we have people writing tweets about him in the middle of the country. And then we have him adding his location in California. Okay. Now we're going to do one more. So we did search. We did this one. And if you want any of these to like go away, just so you have more screen space, you just click that word. Then we're going to do a geolocation, and we're going to do the geo-tweets. And so this I wanted to just demo to you so you can see some of them don't work. So that's okay. We're not going to do that one. But we can kind of see that we get some information in general from those two, from both the 1 million tweets and from the one that we were just at, where we were able to pull this Twitter. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is actually doing some Google dorking. And it's kind of a funny word, kind of funny phrase. And so that comes from Johnny Long, who is a hacker, and he kind of came up with it as an idea to basically state ways that we can come up with different ways to specify searches in Google that give us even additional information. And so we'll take a look at some of those. So within the resources, I provided this that has a whole bunch of the operators that you can add in. And we're going to do a search that searches both name and nickname. And same thing, we can add in so you may have heard of Tom Hanks called T. Hanks or T. Hanksgiving sometimes. And so this is coming up. I'm actually going to switch this to not be in quotes, because when I played around with it earlier, I wasn't doing it in quotes. Yeah, so now we're getting some results with T. Hanks being a reference to Tom Hanks and those going together. So this would work really nicely if you were searching up information maybe about yourself and you knew that you had a particular nickname, or maybe you went by 2 names and you wanted to do that search at the same time. So you could search both of your different names and then add the tilde, you know, that we use like when we're going back to home. And then you want to have all those searches happen at the same time. So that's just one of the many examples you can do that can make Google searching more efficient, can make you more of a master at the Google searching. So kind of keeping in mind that we have now some information about geolocation. We have information about names and nicknames that go together. What we're going to look at next is we are going to look at Shodan. So that can be used in a couple of different ways. So we can use it in a map functionality. And we had before that there was Los Angeles, or there was like Kansas, I think. We do Las Vegas. And so if you're not familiar with Shodan, it is one of the tools that is used, no, I didn't create a slide on it. It's one of the tools that is used to give information about devices, anything that's connected to the internet, and then services, processes, countries. So it's a really useful tool for searching. And to become a member is pretty inexpensive. It's less than $50 if I recollect correctly. And then if you want to do even more searches, there's more expensive pricing. But from like a use perspective, if it's something that you think you might be interested in, it is, and I'm not like a representative or anything, but it can be useful for searching things. So we identified that LA, Las Vegas, those are some places that we were talking about. And so we can take a look at usage in those areas. Now, this is like a huge generalized search, but if you ended up being really specific with your geolocation tags, you could get some really specific information about these places. And so you could end up pairing the knowledge that you just gathered with geolocations from where a tweet was sent to then what information is being sent from a specific location. And you could kind of start figuring out like, okay, well, where might this be? So you're starting to trace things. And so like you can do this about yourself. You could see like, well, what information am I sending out there? What information, like if you're on Twitter, what information am I sending out there in my tweets? And then what information is being sent out in my house? And then what information can be found out about me? So that's kind of like, remember, we're taking this is a journey. And so when you think about like what can be found out about yourself, that's where you want to go with this. And so we'll take a look at then how we can make it so that there's a little bit less of that. And of course, for sending out network traffic, you can check this with what you're sending out from a network traffic perspective, and then make sure that you're using like a VPN and then have a firewall on your network system to then just add those extra layers there, because you do want to mask your traffic a little bit and not just have it be so traceable. Probably, I mean, like personally, yes, but personal preference. So we've looked at now a couple different ones. I'm going to have us look at one more tool, and then we're going to talk about ways to mitigate and then ways to practice this if this is of interest to you. So if you have Kali Linux, you then automatically will have the harvester installed on it as part of it. So I included already the search that I'm going to have us do. And this one's not specific to Tom Hanks. You know, he doesn't have his own website that he has. So we're not going to enumerate a website of his because he doesn't have his own website. So I just figured we would just do Kali as kind of like a generalized generic one to search. And then that way you can see like what the results are. But, you know, maybe you have your own website and it would be beneficial for you to run this search on your website to see, what information is being sent back about this. Like how can you, as you enumerate it, what information is being gathered or can be gathered. And so let's take a look at this and let me walk through what this line is. So the harvester pulls up this tool, and then TAC D pulls up the domain. TAC L is a delimiter, so this is going to delimit 300 searches. TAC B says what to search. And then after this, I'll just do the harvester and we can look at like all the different options. But first we'll run through an actual search result so we can see what that looks like. So I'm going to hit enter. And you can see it says searching in Google, because that's what we set as the search. And this is the creator too. So she's the creator for this tool. Oh, that's interesting. I've run this before. Literally was just using this. I don't know why it would say that there's an error with the user bin because I didn't change anything on it. Interesting. Like I didn't go into any of my files and change any .py files. I'm just going to try running it again because I literally didn't change anything in my files. So that's very odd. But what we would expect to see is searching 0, searching 100, searching 200, searching 300, and then some results where we'll get one email. We'll get a couple different interesting. Okay. I'm gonna try just running a to make a difference, but let me just fun. Let me try. A different domain, but that shouldn't make a difference. Yeah, that's not the reason why it's not working. So, okay, that's fun. So the power of a live demo. Okay, well, imagine that had worked and we were able to see some results. What I'm gonna show you next is some of the options with the harvester. So you can go through a bunch of different search engines. Like I said, you have got TAC D for domain, TAC B for data source. So like I used Google for that one. And there's quite a few you can use, or you can even use all. So that would be interesting to use. Like I could switch it up and try that, but I still think it's not going to work. And then you can do a bunch of different options. So, sometimes you might do like show options for the harvester. You just type the harvester and that shows you all the options that you get. So yeah, let's try. Yeah, okay. So I'll do this really fast. So that's why we're getting the issue. Like I didn't see that at the top. So PyCurl is not compiled against OpenSSL. So this is why we're getting the issue. So the secure socket layer sites. Okay, so that would take potentially a bit to fix with troubleshooting. It could also be a really simple fix, but I'm not going to run into that right now. So what we've done is we've taken a look at a variety of different things that we can do from just closing that. from the OSINT framework, right? So there's so many different things here, right? And I was only just showing you like social networks. And then you can see like so many different things here. Because you could really dig into a lot of these different ones. The other one I did want to show is geolocation, actually. And then wayback imagery, because this could also be a really interesting tool. So we talked already a bit about geolocation, where you could have that information from the tweets, both the searching from and from the Twitter page. But then let's say like you actually use a scraping tool and you get all of someone's tweets, and then you want to look back like, oh, in 2012 they wrote this. I'd actually like to see what it looked like then and what that home was like that they were tweeting from. So you can actually then look back here in the way back and then go to past years and see what a specific place looked like. So like let's say you wanted to look in 2014 in June, and then you can go to specific places and then see the address, specific place for that. So that could be an additional layered search that you're doing as well. So you have geolocation information, you have date, time information, and then you can go to that space and see what it looked like. So that's like another layered search that you can do here from geolocation and wayback imagery. So just reviewing once again our tools, we did the OSINT framework. We looked at ways that we can add in specificity with our Google searching. We looked at Shodan and how we can look up connected devices, as well as the protocols that are even being used too, right? So like we can see that we get some sorting here with protocols and even countries. So once again, that geo part to it. And we tried to use Harvester, which is so interesting because it was working literally earlier today. I was just double checking everything. So more to be played with that for later. So we can see, like I said, data. There's a lot of it. One of the things is that you can remove some of it, but depending on what type of data it is, you won't necessarily be able to remove all of it. And this is why, like, this is literally something that was posted about some of my data. If you ever had a government job and there's salary information about your government job posted because, it was a G-level type thing, that's not going to be something that you're going to be able to remove because it was public record that you had that position and made that, and that salary level was public, right? So that will be something that you can't remove. So this was like a notice on one of the sites when I was looking at like trying to remove something. So that just kind of note that you can't always remove everything, even though you're like, I want to scrub all of my data. It's not always possible, unfortunately. But there are ways to scrub bits and pieces of it. And so that's what we'll take a look at. So I reinserted this. This is from before too. I found this to be pretty helpful that someone made last year. This is a way that they were working on getting rid of a lot of the data that they found out there about themselves. And they said that they kind of went through it and it took a little bit less than 20 hours, but they did it over time. And they suggested starting with this compiled list, which I've pulled up here, and just kind of going through a variety of the places that tend to have your data. And so a bunch of these have just contact us type things. and you literally just request, I am this person. You have my data on your site. Please remove it. So it's a fairly straightforward process, but can be time consuming. So that is one of the things that you can do to work on scrubbing yourself from these places. Okay. Now, probably tell, I think this is pretty cool and really interesting. I mean, obviously I have some personal connections to it as well. But if you think it's pretty cool, if you've enjoyed this journey that we've been on, then there are some ways that you can continue working on your OSINT knowledge, working on developing even more. And so what I would recommend doing is getting involved with Trace Labs. And they're an amazing organization that works on finding missing people. They have OSINT Capture the Flags, search parties, where they occur several times a year, actually, quite a few times. And so I've included their website here. You can be a participant as part of the search party CTF, or you can be a judge, or you could do both on different times during the year because they have so many. And so I definitely recommend doing that. Their most recent one was in June, and it was really cool. And then if this is really fascinating to you, there's a really great book called Information Hunters. So I found it fascinating. It's by Kathy P.S. I might not be pronouncing her name correctly though. So Trace Labs, this is their website. So they actually work on crowdsource like us. We could do this. Many of you probably have done. That they work on helping to find missing people. So kind of this idea of helping others, becoming part of that solution. And so that's, something that I think is really, really excellent to do and work on that. So those are two major ways. And the thing is with Trace Labs as well, they also have a whole set of resources for learning more about OSINT as well. So they've cultivated and developed how can you become better at OSINT. They basically have like a course that's all sequenced and everything. So if it's super fascinating to you, I can't recommend enough doing one of their CTFs if you're on a team of 4, as well as then taking the course that they have. Like I think that is really excellent to do. So we're pretty much at the end of our journey. I really would like to thank you for being here with me today. I'm very happy to connect with you to continue this conversation. I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn or Twitter. Like I said, I love Dr. Who and definitely Dr. Whovian. And I really believe that we are on this journey of constantly learning. And I want to just encourage you to don't stop believing.
Bravo. Thank you so much, Meghan. We do have some time, so I collected some questions. Thank you so much to the audience for submitting, and we can start with those. So the first one came from Jen S., and she was wondering about APIs for this information.
Yeah, there definitely are a whole slew of APIs that you can use for both like setting up data scraping and just in general using as data sets. So I don't have any off the top of my head, but if you want to connect with me on Slack or LinkedIn or Twitter, I'm happy to send you. Here is a toolkit for those two. I would be like setting up like here's a URL, and I don't have that off the top of my head. But yeah, they're 100% because you can actually write code for doing that web scraping, and that's all API based. Yeah.
Thank you. A second question came from Marissa Midler, and that was, did you ever run into any issues with data brokers refusing to remove your information?
So I have run into the one case I said where like I even include that screenshot where it was we won't remove it. So that has happened. And then I have run into a couple times where it's refusal by like ignoring you, in the sense of like you just don't hear back, you're just kind of ghosted. So that has been something I've run into. And you don't really have that much recourse unless you want to try to take legal action, which I haven't done. So there's not that much that can be done for that. Yeah.
Okay. A third question came from Monique Sherman, and they asked which job titles would use these skills.
Oh, that's a great question. So pen testers, right? This is the first step often in a pen test, is gathering information, because you are trying to figure out what a organization does and how they work. But I do risk assessment. Like, you need to know about how an organization works as well too. So I really think like anyone can use this, because I don't know if you went to the talk, Monique, yesterday about OSINT for job searching. You can use it for, being more effective at your job searching. So it definitely really can be many, many different types of jobs that do this. Like, I'm sure we've all seen the different memes that are like a programmer at year 1 or 0, and then they have Google up. And then or you're 10, and then they have Google up. I mean, being able to effectively Google things and search for things is itself a skill, because you have to know enough to know what to search. It's not that you know nothing and are using this tool. It's that you know the right things to search and the ways to search.
I can tell you, as a threat intelligence specialist, that's what we use it all the time.
Yeah, analysts, right? Anyone analysts like CTI, etc. I'd say it's a pretty pervasive skill throughout cybersecurity. I'm sure many people have seen the domains of cybersecurity, where it's like the visual with all the circles. And we could kind of go through all of those and think, well, GRC, right? Like, you need to know about the laws and being able to search those. Threat intelligence, right? The IC community is huge in that. If you're in DevSecOps, you need to be able to figure out information about your secure coding. So yeah, it's everywhere.
I think we can do another question.
Happy to.
Jared asks, in addition to Tracelab search parties, would you suggest OSINT Dojo?
Yes, I would suggest OSINT Dojo. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't put that on there. I have been on there too. So yeah, OSINT Dojo is pretty cool. I like their icon too. They have like a little cute icon with it. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for our questions here. That was a really great question and answer session. Thank you so much to the audience for your involvement with this. And again, Megan, this was fun. Thank you for taking us on this journey.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm sorry that the Harvester didn't work. I saw someone posted a suggestion to do apt update, and I'm sure that probably would have helped, because it looked like it was probably just a broken thing, but it's so funny it had been working before. So yeah.
I think it made everybody feel better, because we've all gone through that in real life, and you think it's just me, but no, this happens to everybody. So thank you for the real live demo, and to everybody, please continue enjoying your journey through Diana Initiative. Visit our expo booths and say hi to our sponsors. There's other villages as well, and just thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us. Okay, with that, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.